Have you ever trusted someone completely? You told them things you never told anyone else. You defended them when others doubted them. You believed they would never hurt you, and then, one day, they betrayed you. Maybe it was a friend who shared your secrets behind your back. Maybe it was a partner who promised loyalty and then cheated. Maybe it was a colleague who smiled in front of you, but used you to climb higher. And when it happens, it leaves a strange question in your mind. Not just, why did they do it? But something deeper. Why does this keep happening to me? Why do some people seem to attract betrayal? Again and again. Is it just bad luck? Or is there something darker happening beneath the surface of human psychology? Because the uncomfortable truth is this: some people don't betray you by accident. They betray you because their psychology makes betrayal inevitable. And what's even more disturbing, most of these people reveal who they really are long before they betray you. But the signs are subtle, so subtle that most people completely miss them. In this video, we're going to explore the hidden psychology of people who always betray others, why they do it, how they think, and most importantly, how you can recognize them before they destroy your trust. Because once you understand the psychology behind betrayal, you stop blaming yourself and you start seeing people for who they really are. But before we understand the people who betray, we first need to understand something even deeper: why betrayal hurts the human mind more than almost any other form of pain. Betrayal hurts in a way that is difficult to explain. It's not just anger. It's not just sadness. It feels like something inside you breaks, and the reason for that lies deep inside human psychology. As human beings, we are wired for trust and cooperation. For thousands of years, survival depended on it. Early humans couldn't live alone in the wild. They needed a tribe, a group they could rely on. Your brain evolved to believe that the people close to you are part of that tribe. People you trust become part of your psychological safety system. And when you trust someone, your brain releases chemicals like oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. It creates emotional attachment. It tells your mind, this person is safe. That's why when someone earns your trust, you slowly start lowering your defenses. You open up, you share your fears, your secrets, your vulnerabilities. You allow them to see the real version of you. But betrayal shatters that system instantly. When someone you trust lies to you, cheats on you, or manipulates you, your brain reacts almost the same way it would react to physical pain. Studies have shown that the same areas of the brain activated by physical injury are also activated by social betrayal and rejection. In other words, betrayal doesn't just hurt emotionally. Your brain literally experiences it as pain. But the damage goes even deeper than that. Betrayal destroys something psychologists call predictability. Your brain constantly tries to understand the world through patterns. When someone close to you behaves consistently, your mind forms a belief: I know who this person is. But when they betray you, that belief collapses. Suddenly, the person you thought you understood becomes a stranger. And that creates a terrifying psychological feeling: uncertainty. If you were wrong about them, who else could you be wrong about? This is why betrayal doesn't just damage a relationship, it damages your sense of reality. You start questioning your judgment, your instincts, your ability to trust anyone again. And that's why many people who experience betrayal become more guarded, more suspicious, sometimes even emotionally distant. Not because they want to, but because their brain is trying to protect them from being hurt again. But here's where the story becomes darker, because betrayal doesn't always come from people who lost control or made a mistake in a moment of weakness. Sometimes, betrayal comes from people whose personality is built around manipulation, people who don't see trust the way you do, people who see relationships not as emotional bonds, but as opportunities for advantage. And once you understand the psychology of these people, you start realizing something unsettling. Some individuals don't just betray once. Betrayal is part of who they are. And to understand them, we need to look at the hidden personality of chronic betrayers. When people think about betrayal, they usually imagine a moment of weakness, a mistake, a bad decision, a moment where someone lost control. But the truth is, some betrayals are not accidents. They are patterns. There are people in this world who betray again and again and again, not because they feel guilty afterward, not because they regret it, but because their personality is wired in a way that makes betrayal feel normal to them. Psychologists have studied this for years, and they've discovered that chronic betrayers often share certain psychological traits. The first trait is a lack of empathy. Empathy is the ability to feel what another person feels. It's what stops most people from hurting someone they care about. But chronic betrayers often have very weak empathy. When they hurt someone, they don't experience the emotional weight the same way you do. To them, your pain is not a deep moral problem. It's simply collateral damage. This trait is often associated with narcissistic personalities. People with strong narcissistic tendencies see the world through a very specific lens. In their mind, the world revolves around them. Their needs come first. Their success comes first. Their desires come first. And other people become tools. If someone is useful, they keep them around. If someone stops being useful, they move on. And if betrayal helps them gain something, status, attention, money, power, they often justify it easily. But narcissism is only one part of the story. Another powerful trait behind betrayal is something psychologists call Machiavellian thinking. This is a mindset where relationships are treated like strategic games. Instead of asking, "Is this the right thing to do?" they ask a different question. What benefits me the most? People with strong Machiavellian traits are often extremely calculated. They think several steps ahead. They study people's weaknesses. They learn what motivates others. And then they use that information to manipulate situations in their favor. To them, loyalty is not a moral value. It's a temporary strategy. As long as loyalty helps them win, they stay loyal. But the moment betrayal offers a greater advantage, they switch sides without hesitation. There's also another psychological layer that many people never consider. For some individuals, betrayal actually creates a sense of power and control. Deep inside, they may feel insecure. They may feel insignificant. But manipulating people gives them a strange psychological reward. It makes them feel smarter, more powerful, more in control. So when they betray someone and successfully get away with it, their brain learns something dangerous. It learns that manipulation works. And once someone learns that lesson, betrayal can slowly become part of their behavioral pattern. Finally, there is one more trait that makes chronic betrayers especially difficult to recognize. Their morality is often opportunistic. Most people have stable values. They believe honesty is important, loyalty matters, and betrayal is wrong. But chronic betrayers don't see morality in fixed terms. Their values shift depending on what benefits them in the moment. If honesty benefits them, they will appear honest. If loyalty benefits them, they will appear loyal. But if betrayal gives them more advantage, their moral compass quickly adjusts. And here's the most unsettling part. These people rarely walk around looking like villains. They don't introduce themselves as manipulators. In fact, many of them appear charming, friendly, and trustworthy, which raises a disturbing question. If these people are capable of such deep betrayal, why do they often appear so trustworthy in the beginning? And the answer to that question reveals one of the most dangerous psychological tricks manipulators use. One of the most confusing things about betrayal is this. The people who hurt you the most are often the people who seemed the most trustworthy in the beginning. They didn't look dangerous. They didn't feel suspicious. In fact, many of them felt like the kindest people you had ever met. And that's exactly why their betrayal feels so shocking. But this isn't just bad luck. There is a powerful psychological reason why many betrayers appear trustworthy at first. The first reason is charm. Many manipulators are extremely good at social interaction. They know how to smile, how to compliment, how to make people feel seen and valued. When you first meet them, they often appear confident, friendly, and emotionally intelligent. They know how to say the right things at the right moment, and your brain naturally interprets that charm as sincerity. But charm and honesty are not the same thing. Charm is a skill, and in the hands of a manipulator, it becomes a powerful tool. The second strategy many betrayers use is something psychologists call mirroring. Mirroring is when someone subtly copies your personality, interests, or values. If you talk about your love for music, suddenly they love the same artists. If you speak about loyalty, they strongly agree. If you share your dreams or beliefs, they seem to understand you perfectly. It creates a strange feeling of connection. You start thinking, wow, this person is just like me. But what's really happening is psychological reflection. They are not revealing themselves. They are studying you. By mirroring your personality, they build trust quickly. Your brain interprets similarity as safety. And the more similar someone feels to you, the easier it becomes to trust them. The third tactic is playing the victim. This is one of the most powerful manipulation techniques. A betrayer may tell you stories about how others have hurt them in the past. They might describe former friends who betrayed them, partners who cheated on them, colleagues who treated them unfairly. And when you hear those stories, your natural reaction is empathy. You feel sorry for them. You think, this person has suffered a lot. They would never hurt someone the same way. But sometimes, those stories serve another purpose. They create emotional sympathy. And once sympathy enters the relationship, your guard begins to drop. Finally, there is something even more subtle. Many betrayers build trust slowly and patiently. They don't rush. At first, they are supportive, helpful, reliable. They may spend months building a reputation of loyalty because they understand something very important about human psychology. Trust is not built through words. It is built through repeated positive experiences. And once someone earns enough of your trust, they gain access to your personal world, your emotions, your secrets, your vulnerabilities. And that is exactly the moment when betrayal becomes possible. This is why the most dangerous betrayers rarely look dangerous at all. They look like friends, partners, supporters, until the moment their true intentions finally appear. But this leads to a question that many people quietly ask themselves after being betrayed. Why do some people seem to encounter betrayal again and again? Why does it feel like manipulators somehow find them? The answer to that question reveals something uncomfortable, but incredibly powerful to understand. Why you keep meeting people who betray you. After experiencing betrayal, many people start asking a painful question. Why does this keep happening to me? Why does it feel like certain people repeatedly enter your life, earn your trust, and eventually betray it? At first, it may feel like pure bad luck. But psychology suggests something deeper is often happening beneath the surface. And this is important to understand, because attracting manipulators does not mean you are weak. In fact, many people who get betrayed repeatedly share qualities that are actually good human traits. The problem is, manipulators know exactly how to exploit them. The first trait is a naturally trusting nature. Some people approach the world with openness. They believe most people are fundamentally good. They assume that if they are honest, loyal, and sincere, others will behave the same way. But manipulators operate under a completely different mindset. They don't see trust as something sacred. They see it as something that can be used. And when someone easily trusts others, a manipulator immediately recognizes an opportunity. Not because you are naive, but because you are projecting your own values onto someone who doesn't share them. The second vulnerability is something surprisingly beautiful. The desire to help or fix people. Many empathetic individuals feel drawn to people who appear wounded or misunderstood. If someone tells you they've been hurt before, you may feel a strong urge to support them. You want to be the person who proves that not everyone is cruel. But manipulators often present themselves exactly this way. They appear broken, misunderstood, victimized by others, and your compassion becomes the doorway through which they enter your life. The third pattern involves fear of confrontation. Some people deeply dislike conflict. They prefer harmony over arguments. When they notice strange behavior, small lies, or subtle disrespect, they often ignore it to avoid tension. But manipulators quickly learn something about these personalities. If you tolerate small violations of trust, they can gradually push the boundaries further. What begins as a small lie can slowly turn into deeper deception. Because the manipulator has already discovered something important, you are unlikely to challenge them. Finally, there is one of the most common psychological traps: ignoring red flags. When we become emotionally attached to someone, our brain naturally tries to protect the relationship. If we notice something suspicious, we often create explanations for it. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe they were just having a bad day. And sometimes those explanations are correct, but other times they allow dangerous behavior to continue unchecked. Manipulators are extremely good at detecting when someone is willing to give them the benefit of the doubt again and again. And every time a red flag is ignored, the manipulator learns that their behavior has no real consequences. But here's the empowering truth. Manipulators don't randomly choose their targets. They search for psychological openings. And once you become aware of those openings, you begin to close them, which means something powerful happens. You start seeing patterns that most people completely miss. Small signals, subtle behaviors, tiny inconsistencies that reveal someone's true nature long before betrayal occurs. Because the reality is this: people who betray others almost always reveal themselves early, but their signals are quiet. And once you learn how to recognize those signals, you stop being an easy target. So the next question becomes incredibly important. What are the early warning signs that someone may eventually betray you? And once you see these signs, you will never look at relationships the same way again. Most betrayals don't come out of nowhere. They feel sudden, shocking, completely unexpected. But when people look back later, they often realize something unsettling. The signs were there all along. They were just small, subtle, easy to ignore. Manipulative people rarely expose their true nature immediately. Instead, they reveal it through tiny inconsistencies over time. And if you learn to recognize these early signals, you can protect yourself long before serious damage happens. The first warning sign is inconsistent behavior. Pay attention to the gap between someone's words and their actions. They might say they value loyalty, but constantly disappear when you need them. They promise honesty, yet small lies keep appearing. They claim to respect you, but their behavior occasionally feels dismissive or disrespectful. Healthy people strive for consistency. Manipulators rely on confusion, because when behavior becomes unpredictable, it becomes harder to clearly judge someone's character. The second warning sign is how they talk about other people. If someone constantly gossips, criticizes, or exposes the private secrets of others, that behavior is revealing something important. It shows how they treat trust. Many people make a dangerous assumption in this situation. They think, they would never talk about me that way. But the reality is much simpler. People usually treat everyone the same way eventually. If someone casually betrays the trust of others, it is only a matter of time before that pattern reaches you too. The third warning sign is an inability to take responsibility. Manipulative personalities rarely admit fault. When something goes wrong, they quickly shift blame. Maybe it's your misunderstanding. Maybe it's someone else's mistake. Maybe the situation itself was unfair. But somehow, they always manage to escape accountability. This is dangerous, because accountability is the foundation of trust. If someone cannot admit small mistakes, they will almost certainly hide bigger ones. The fourth warning sign is something many people overlook completely: sudden shifts in loyalty. Pay attention to how quickly someone changes sides in conflicts. One day they strongly support a person. The next day they completely abandon them when circumstances change. People with strong character maintain loyalty even when it's inconvenient. But opportunistic personalities treat loyalty like a temporary contract. They stay loyal only as long as it benefits them, and if they are capable of abandoning others easily, they can eventually abandon you as well. The important thing to remember is this: betrayers rarely reveal themselves through dramatic actions in the beginning. They reveal themselves through small moments, small lies, small betrayals, small manipulations. Each one is a signal, and when you start recognizing those signals, something interesting happens. You stop seeing relationships only through emotion. You start observing people through patterns, and patterns reveal truth. But recognizing these signs is only half of the equation, because constantly suspecting everyone around you is not the answer. Living in paranoia destroys trust just as much as betrayal does. The real solution is something far more powerful: psychological strength. Because when your mindset becomes strong enough, you don't need to fear betrayal. You naturally become the kind of person that manipulators find difficult to exploit. And once you reach that level of awareness, something changes forever. You become psychologically unbetrayable. At this point, you might be wondering something important. If people like this exist, if manipulators can be charming, intelligent, and patient, then how do you actually protect yourself? The answer is not becoming cold. It's not distrusting everyone. And it's definitely not shutting people out of your life. The real defense against betrayal is psychological strength. When your mindset becomes strong and aware, manipulators quickly realize something: you are not an easy target. The first step toward this strength is boundaries. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is giving trust too quickly. When someone enters your life and immediately appears kind, supportive, and loyal, it feels natural to open up fast. But trust should not be based on first impressions. It should be based on consistent behavior over time. Healthy boundaries mean allowing people to earn deeper access to your life. Slowly, you can be kind. You can be friendly, but you don't immediately hand someone your deepest vulnerabilities. Because once trust is given too quickly, it becomes easy for manipulative people to misuse it. The second principle is something simple, but incredibly powerful. Observe actions, not words. Words are easy. Anyone can promise loyalty. Anyone can say they value you, but actions reveal patterns, and patterns reveal character. Someone who truly respects you will show it consistently. Not just when it's convenient. When you train yourself to watch behavior instead of listening only to words, you start seeing people much more clearly. The third layer of psychological protection is emotional independence. Many betrayals become devastating because we emotionally depend too heavily on a single person. We look to them for validation, security, approval, or happiness. And when that person betrays us, it feels like the ground beneath our life disappears. But when your sense of self comes from within, betrayal loses much of its destructive power. You still care about people. You still value relationships. But your identity does not collapse if someone leaves or disappoints you. Manipulators often search for people who rely on them emotionally, because emotional dependence creates control. But when someone is emotionally stable and self-assured, manipulation becomes extremely difficult. Finally, there is something called strategic trust. This means understanding that trust is not something you give blindly. It is something that grows through observation. Healthy relationships are built step by step. Trust a little. Observe. Trust a little more. And if someone repeatedly proves their integrity over time, trust naturally deepens. But if their behavior reveals dishonesty or manipulation early on, you simply adjust your distance. No drama, no emotional chaos, just awareness. And when you live with this kind of awareness, something interesting happens. Manipulators start avoiding you. Because people who exploit others usually search for individuals who are easier to influence. But when they sense someone who observes carefully, sets boundaries, and doesn't depend emotionally on them, they realize the effort isn't worth it, and they quietly move on to easier targets. Which leads us to one final powerful truth about betrayal. A truth that can completely change how you see your past experiences and your future relationships. When people experience betrayal, they often carry the pain for years. They replay the memories in their mind. How didn't I see it? Why did I trust them? Was it my fault? But here is a truth most people eventually discover with time. Betrayal does not always reveal who you are. It reveals who the other person chose to be. Trusting someone is not a weakness. Caring about people is not a mistake. Those qualities are part of what makes someone deeply human. The real lesson of betrayal is not to stop trusting everyone around you, because a life without trust becomes a life filled with fear. Instead, betrayal teaches something far more valuable. It teaches discernment, the ability to see people clearly, to observe their actions carefully, to recognize patterns before they become damage. And once you develop that awareness, something powerful happens. You stop giving your trust away blindly. You start giving it wisely, because the goal in life is not to avoid every dishonest person. That's impossible. The real goal is learning who deserves your loyalty and who does not. And once you understand the psychology behind betrayal, you stop being controlled by it. You stop blaming yourself, and you start building relationships based on awareness, strength, and real trust. So the next time someone enters your life, remember this: kindness is powerful, trust is beautiful, but wisdom is what protects both. And sometimes the people who betray you don't destroy your ability to trust. They simply teach you how to trust the right people. If this video made you see human behavior in a new way, let me know in the comments. What do you think is the biggest red flag people ignore in relationships? And if you want to understand the deeper psychology of human behavior, manipulation, and emotional strength, make sure to subscribe, because the more you understand the human mind, the harder it becomes for anyone to control it.